This video is being made as part of the Part 3 Modifying Data for Experimentation section of the BK Demo Data Guide. What I am going to attempt to do here is force 4 of the most common balance sheet errors and show you how straightforward it is to find errors in this system. So let me see. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to show you what an uncategorized transaction will look like, self-categorized transaction, a transfer that shouldn't have been or that should have been an expense or vice versa, and transactions with the wrong year or out of range. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is uncategorized transactions, self-categorized. So here we are. If I've got let's find my balance sheet here. And let's go with we're going to tighten this date range so that it's we're not chasing this forever. We got 1/5/2016. Okay, so there are the transactions, and there's the transactions on the end date right there. Maybe I'll try to do one of those. What was that? The first one's uncategorized transaction, right? And okay, so let's go to 1/5/2016 in the credit card journal. Actually, let me see. I thought that there was more transactions than that. Oh, that's just the end date. What are the all transactions? Date range. Yeah, that's plenty. We got plenty there. Okay, so there's the transaction set that we're going to be working with. Now, let me go to the credit card journal on 1/5. And it was, there it is, $14.99. So the first thing I'm going to do, this is office expenses. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make a note. I'm going to have very short memory. And I'm going to uncategorize this. Okay, go back to my balance sheet. Actually, I should have had two windows open so you could watch it happen in real time. This is updating the transaction. It's already fallen out. There's the red. Okay, and what I can do is duplicate this, pop this off, and I'll see if I can do both of these in the same time so you can watch them kind of happen. But so the bottom line is here I have what I would do normally is, let's say it's 1/31, the end of the month, and I'm trying to run the balance sheet. What I would find out is that it's out of balance. I have no idea where that out of balance is. The first thing I do is go back to, let's say, the beginning of time, and I'd go to make sure that I started off with something that was even worthwhile. 1/2. Okay, 1/2, I'm in balance. So I know sometime between 1/2 and 1/31, I'm out of balance. And this is just trial and error right here. Okay, I know by the 15th, I'm still out of balance. By the 8th, I'm still out of balance. By the 5th, I'm out of balance. And by the 4th, oh, I'm in balance. I fell out of balance on the 5th. Okay, I expand this. I go look, instead of looking at the whole date range here, I don't need the whole date. So this is everything that's contributing this. All I want is the 5th, the end date on the report. So I click end date. And I come look at this. And this is where the debits and credits are kind of nice, although it doesn't matter because you can see it sticks out here like a sore thumb too. So what I have is 199, 199, 1499, and I don't have a balancing offset for 1499. It looks like I have a transaction that is blank, void. I don't have another. This is kind of hard to see with this report, but here is your account column. And I've got in credit card 8899, I've got a transaction 1499, but I'm missing the categorization. If I click on view here, I go here. Now this should be kind of cool if I can do this. Yeah, you can see it. So there's the $14.99. I'm going to pick office expenses here and watch over here. You'll see this thing update as I'm doing this. And okay, click, boom. I don't have to touch anything over here. It's updating here. It's updating here. And that'll go to 0, hopefully. It takes a little longer, by the way. When you have multiple instances of this open, it literally has to update both of them. So it takes a little longer. So there you go. You can see we just did that. So an uncategorized transaction will stand out like a sore thumb. I don't even try to read or look at the numbers. It used to be you'd kind of look at the numbers and figure out what value you're looking for. Now all that's out the window. I just find the date and I go look at the transactions. So let's go look what a self-categorized transaction will look like. So let me go back over to my journal here. Instead of being nothing, let's say I accidentally select. When I say self-categorizing, I'm in the credit card journal. Say I select the credit card journal. Well, that's sure a screw up. I hope this trips an error. I'm sure it will. So I look over here. Okay, there's my error again. And there's my error again. And again, I wouldn't necessarily know where it was, but we know it's on the 5th. So I'm not going to sit here and, I can go to the 4th and find out it's green. And so I go to the 5th, and let's see what this one looks like over here now. So I come over here, and what I would look at is, well, that's kind of weird. So I'm just completely missing something here. So I've got 199, 199, I've got 1499, but I've got nothing, no record. It has to do with the way I chose to balance the balancing half of transfers, is why there is not a blank one here with no categorization. There's just one missing completely. So that's a hint as to what's going on. But you can still, since there's only one transaction here, I can click this and see if I can certainly get close. I click the transaction and poof, there I am, right? Now let's do this in this other. Let me hit the back button here. Nice part when you go with that link, you can hit the back button, get there. I already know where I need to go, so I'll go here and I'll correct that to office expenses again. Again, in the old world, you were looking for dollar amounts and you were looking for journals. This thing it shows you what it is. You click, you drill down, you make the change, and away you go. Okay, so that's updating. We should see that go to 0 here shortly as soon as these things finish updating. There it is. And now, next transaction. Transfer that should have been an expense or vice versa. All right. So we know this should be an office expense, but let's pretend that we recorded as a checking account, transfer to checking instead. As you can imagine, it's going to fall out of balance. I mean, I hate to use, I won't even use those terms. This is monkey work at this point. So this is nothing like what troubleshooting a balance sheet was like before. Again, in this situation, so uncategorized shows that second half, but the transfers or the self-referencing or transfers only show one half of the transaction. If I click on this, I go to the transaction. I'll just you can go to the transaction. You can make the realize what it is, make the change, and then you can hit the back button. So I can hit the back button. So this was office expenses, right? Okay, and then I can hit the back button here while it's doing that to watch this thing update. Pretty slick. We click the link to get there, the back button gets you back, and just like working in a browser. Okay, and now for the final trick. If the transaction was with the wrong year, out of range. In my old system, my web-based database-driven system, I had to manually key in stuff. I wasn't using a CSV or a download auto connection, and every once in a while I would just hit a wrong year. So it was supposed to be in 2019. I put in 2017 or 2012, and I didn't have a statements worksheet to catch me. So let's pretend that this thing was in the wrong year. This is far easier to do in this system. This will fall out of balance, number one. Actually, no, that won't fall out of balance. That's in balance, no problem, right? However, what you have out of balance is the statements worksheet. It's the credit card. I'm going to hit pause here. Okay, I didn't get the expected result here, so I'm going to hit pause and see if I can play with this and figure out why it's not behaving properly. I'm not sure if it's because I've got two of these open. I already hit refresh and didn't come up, so let me play with this for a bit. Okay, I'm back, and I'm going to explain to you what's going on, and I've got a situation here where it's a not bug, meaning it didn't behave as I'd expect it to, but there's no harm, no foul, and I'll show you that with a slight change, it would behave with the foul, I'm pretty sure. So what I did was I had this transaction was supposed to be 1/5/2016. This is what we started off with, right? And basically what I was expecting to go is, hey, watch this. When I kick this thing back to a prior time, it's going to burp and kick it out of whack. Let's change this example a little bit. First of all, let's put this into a future time. So let's say I screwed up and put this in 2017. Okay. Then, so I accidentally entered it, fat fingered it with a forward date. This should fall out of balance here as it updates. Actually, this won't fall out of balance. What will fall out of balance is the statements worksheet. Okay. And I can see actually where it fell out of balance and where it is right here. The area where I've got a balance problem is going to be in this month. Okay? It'll be in that month. So I'd have to go find it. It'd take a little bit of work. I can close this. It'd take a little bit of work if you came back in here and you had them all green and then it went to not green. It would take a little bit of work, but you can use the dollar amount here to figure out what it is. What the amount is that's a problem, possibly. We're going to go equals, let's say this minus this. I'm doing this on the fly, by the way. I haven't tried this before, so we'll see what happens. But we've got an increase, $14.99. I've got a problem of $14.99 in here. Okay? So, I could come over here and I could sort by number and find that $14.99. If you wanted me to do this, I could sort by the column. I could find $14.99. And what I would notice was the transaction amount, or the transaction ID is 6, but the date is way out of order for where 6 would be. So I had to go to raw transactions and figure out what's going on. So in that case, it was not going to show up. The error won't show up on the balance sheet on that case, but it will show up on the statements worksheet. So technically, to make sure that you are in balance, you need to verify that both your statements and your balance sheet are showing as reconciled. Okay. Now, what if I was only out of balance by 3 months, or out of the date range by 3 months? Okay, this is going to look better. It should hop up to here within 3 months of the error. Should. There it is. Okay. And the reason that this is working this way is because it does an aggregated reconciliation from the beginning of time. There is another way to do this, but you have to change the cells to just look for the transactions between period A and period B. I'm doing it from the beginning of time. So this is the running balance ever since the beginning of time. So it's only catching it. It'll catch everything prior to it. It's the way that it was programmed. You could change this program, but this works fine. Okay, that's still good, but that's not going to show up on your balance sheet because there's no half transaction going on. There's just a complete absence. Now, what happened earlier when I went backwards in time? So I took this $14.99. Let's put this back in the right time frame. Skipping time zones. And I went back to, let's say, 2001 by accident. And what I got was not what I expected. I expect, hey, this thing should break. It did not break. Everything looks green there, and everything looks good on the balance sheet. And the reason is because what I am doing, and I had to open this up to make sure I understood what was going on here. Remember, I have these two different columns, so I still have that the older system where it looks at the running balances, and then this newer one just does all the math like a running balance. And what I had to do was I had to come over here to the credit card journal, and I had to look at this and go, well, why is it still working properly? Well, because what I'm doing is I'm summing all of the transactions up until the 8th. So I summed all these. I came down here, I looked at the sum, it says 27.4. Well, that's what I expect it to be. Sure, because all I did was move this transaction from here, from where it should be at 1.5 in here. All I did was move from here to here. And if I'm summing from the beginning of time, then it's still included and I'm okay. So there's a case where I've got a date out of balance. And it's not going to show up there. Now, the problem with that is that it would not show up on my income statement for the month. So what we found is a slight bug. The only time that you would have this issue is if the date on a transaction was in the very first month of your statements. So the very first month of the statement reconciliation. And the date that got typed in incorrectly went back prior to the beginning of time or prior to the start date. So no logical reason that should ever happen. Certainly it could, and it would throw your income statement off. But if it throws the income statement off, it should throw, oh no, it's not going to throw it off there either because it's not in the income statement. So yeah, so we found a small bug doing this too, that if as long as a transaction is thrown out of date forward, it will be caught. As long as it's thrown out of date backwards, it will be caught, as long as it's not the very first in the very first reconciliation date range, at which point in time it will not be caught. So I'll think about this. I don't think I'm going to change the way this program works. That's a tiny issue, and I like the automation here. To actually change this, what ends up happening is I can no longer use an array formula here in this column. You have to actually drag this stuff up and down. So I may just leave that the way it is. We've got it documented nicely here in this video. But anyway, you can see, other than this burp or hiccup in the background, in the back end, that the balance sheet is extremely easy to use and flags all relevant errors except for one little niche error that we just discovered.